Guten Tag. So, great news for Ukraine with the German parliamentary election results. Friedrich Merz of the CDU, the center-right party, will be Germany's next chancellor, their prime minister. His party came first in the elections, about 30% of the vote. The AfD, or Alternative für Deutschland, which is a pro-Kremlin party, they came in second place, along with another pro-Kremlin party that will be in the parliament, Die Linke. They do not have a blocking minority or blocking majority in the German parliament, the Bundestag, and Friedrich Merz will form a coalition, a grand coalition as it's known, with the current ruling party in Germany, the SPD, which is led by the current chancellor, Olaf Scholz. So why is this good news for Germany and for Europe and for Ukraine, which is the focus of this channel? So Friedrich Merz has been particularly outspoken about being more pro-support for Ukraine, and he has already given some interviews on German TV where he emphasized the need for European unity, and it seems like some of the moves that he will take, presumably once he becomes chancellor, might actually be a couple of months before he's actually inaugurated or invested as being the new chancellor. They're saying that it might be up until about Easter, so that's about 2 months away. He also wants to look for additional security with respect to Germany's defense and Europe's defense, in particular after Donald Trump's comments and the Trump administration comes over, say, the last 2 weeks since J.D. Vance made that, at this point, quite disheartening speech at the Munich Security Conference from the point of view of European security, German security, and, of course, Ukraine in the Russo-Ukrainian war. So he is looking for alternatives to basically NATO. He doesn't seem to have confidence that under the Trump administration that in the case of Russia attacking not just maybe a member of NATO in the Baltic states or maybe Poland, but actually Germany itself, that the US will be there to protect Germany and to respond accordingly. So he has already mooted discussing additional nuclear deterrence protection from France and the UK. France and the UK, they actually have a seat at the UN Security Council, but they are the two nuclear powers within NATO that are European. The other one, obviously, is the United States. But if he feels that they can no longer depend on the US and actually NATO even continuing to exist in reality, not just on paper, then he is already making overtures that he needs to go and get those additional security guarantees and probably some sort of European Union or European-based collective security framework for the continent that would be autonomous from NATO and the US support. So definitely an interesting morning to wake up to the results in Germany. It is very good news for Volodymyr Zelensky and Ukraine. Not so good news for Vladimir Putin. Or maybe in these strange times that we're living, maybe also not great news for Donald Trump and his new administration. After the comments they made in the last 2 weeks, J.D. Vance actually went and met the leader of the AfD party, Alternative für Deutschland. It is quite far right on the political spectrum. It is labeled as a far right party, whether you agree with that classification or not, but definitely it has a very pro-Kremlin, pro-Moscow point of view with respect to Germany's position in Europe and energy supplies and trade with Russia and continuing the sanctions. They want all of that removed. It is particularly friendly to Moscow, and what is even more interesting for me when I looked at the election map, their core base of support is in the eastern part of Germany, which ironically was the part that was held back during the Cold War, being in the state of East Germany, most of it, which was allied with the Soviet Union, part of the Warsaw Pact. And here we are over 30 years later, and the people there are voting basically for a pro-Moscow party. It's quite interesting, maybe a bit of Stockholm syndrome, one could say, in the reaction of German voters in that part. But at the end of the day, Friedrich Merz is going to be the new German chancellor very soon, and he will be in a coalition with Olaf Scholz party. It's not clear whether Scholz will continue as the leader of the SPD party or he will be replaced. And we now have to wait and see what Merz starts to do before he even becomes the new chancellor formally, and negotiations, and how Europe is going to react to not just Vladimir Putin and the Russo-Ukrainian war and his attacks on Ukraine, but also the latest pivot by Donald Trump and his new administration, which doesn't seem to be particularly friendly towards Europe or towards Ukraine, and seems to be pivoting towards better relations with Russia. However, that can all change. Donald Trump may decide to flip-flop. I look under under my videos for the comments, and I always get these ones saying that it's 3G chess that Donald Trump is playing, and we mere normies can't understand his genius in negotiations, and in fact he will turn on Vladimir Putin, and it's all a ruse. But very few European leaders seem to be buying into that version of events, in particular because of what J.D. Vance said at the Munich Security Conference, where basically he gave a speech claiming that China and Russia are not the big threats to Europe, which is a remarkable statement when we've got the biggest war in Europe since World War II that was started by Russia. They invaded Crimea and eastern Ukraine in 2014, and then obviously we had the extended invasion in 2022. But instead it's to do with freedom of expression, and he cited examples including instances where governments in Europe have taken action against pro-Kremlin parties, for example in Romania, which will be something I will deal with in due course. There is going to be a new Romanian presidential election very soon, in a couple of months, and leading the polls is a pro-Kremlin candidate, Calin Georgescu. I have some previous videos on the channel about that. So in light of all that, it is remarkable to see the pivot and the reaction of some holdout Trump supporters who are pro-Ukrainian and think that he's still going to deliver. I am not so confident, but all will be revealed. Leave your comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Auf Wiedersehen.